So, how long do we go for?
10 minutes to the hour.
Okay. Is that my phone over there ringing?
Oh, I think that's mine.
Okay, because I had set a timer earlier. That's how I remember things, is I set timers for myself. About half the time the timer goes off, and then I don't remember why I set it, but the other half it works. So I'm excited to be here. I was telling Shauna when we were walking over, one of my co-founders of DOBA and a good friend of mine from high school in Idaho went here to UVU, and he called it Harvard on the Highway. So if as I'm speaking it comes out as Harvard on the Highway, I mean no disrespect. I think it's a spectacular institution. But I didn't prepare a presentation today. I have 3 or 4 presentations that I've given over the years. I have one called Beware the Idea Fairy. I have one called Adventures in Entrepreneurship. And I just wanted to try something new and just try to, I started the first this year, redusted off my website, my blog, and once a week I post, and I try to put something up there that's completely non-filtered whatsoever, and as aggressively, brutally honest as possible about entrepreneurship. Because too many people like sugarcoat it, and we celebrate it all as this amazing, awesome thing, which it is. But it's really, really, really damn hard, and it's, you know, we focus too much on the exciting thing, and you meet most entrepreneurs, and they're just, yeah, I'm just doing so awesome, I'm just, you know, it's amazing, you know, we're gonna kill it, you know. They're not being honest with you, because inside their head, they're wondering how the hell they're gonna make it work. So that, I wanna tell you, I came up with 10 or 11 things we could talk about. You guys can tell me what you want to talk about. Before I get to that, I'll tell you just real quick my story. So I grew up on a farm in southern Idaho, a dairy farm. Highly recommend that if you want to be an entrepreneur, because as hard as entrepreneurship is, I'll have to just think back to waking up at 5 in the morning to go feed the cows and the baby calves, and it's pretty easy compared to that. Came to school down here at BYU, had some family friends in Idaho that ran a business buying closeout skis from manufacturers, and they would do that every spring. They'd buy several thousand pairs of skis, and then they would put them in their horse trailer, or actually in garbage pails in this horse trailer, stuff them full of skis, and they'd drive this trailer and truck all over the western United States selling skis to ski swaps. So they'd come to Park City, they'd go to LA, you know, all over. They spent 2.5 months in the fall just on the road. They made a boatload of money, and all I knew is they made a lot of money. They played around with their horses and they went fly fishing the rest of the year. It's like, okay, that's interesting. And I had worked a couple tech jobs. You know, I remember the first time I ever saw the internet was in '95, at the end of '95, up at Weber State University. I had a buddy of mine. He's like, you have to come see this thing called the internet. You know, so you know, I worked at a company called Net Schools, and so I'd always been an idea kind of person. I used to walk up and down the sugar beet fields with my dad talking about how we should invent robots to hoe the beets for us so that we didn't have to do it. It's just always that kind of person. So I said, hey, you know, driving around horse trailers with skis, internet, seems like it'd be better to do it on the internet. And so that became Ski Trade. And that was the idea. It was pretty simple. You know, I'm gonna sell skis on the internet. And I didn't know what to do, so I went to BYU and I put a flyer up with a logo I designed in word art called Ski Trade. Still the best logo we've ever had. And you know, with the little flyers with your phone number, and it's like, call me, I got skis, you know? And I kept putting them up because they'd rip them down like twice a day. And I got 3 or 4 phone calls, and then I would call the people like I knew in Idaho. I'm like, hey, do you have any skis? This person wants to buy some skis. And then I started going to ski swaps. And then I flew to North Carolina to this industry event. And then I started going to the Outdoor Retailer Show. And I worked on this thing off and on, and some more on than off, really, for a couple years. And then, you know, it's one of those things where I got married, and I had just gotten laid off from my job. I was married, I was still in school, and I wanted to really actually do this business and just poke around at it. So I dropped out of school because I'm like, I can't do 4 things, I can only do 3. Took a job working at AuthorizeNet, doing tech support from 3 to midnight so that I could work on Gear Trade in the morning. Did that for about a year. And then we raised a little bit of money and we jumped into Gear Trade. And Gear Trade didn't succeed. We lost all of our family's money, but we sold the assets in a very, very lucky kind of scenario. And during the road of Gear Trade, came across this idea of drop shipping. which is where manufacturers and distributors hold the product inventory instead of shipping it out to retailers. And then the retailers can sell products that they don't ever see and touch. It's called inventory-free retail. And we had just lived this gear trade world where we were dealing with these closeout inventory problems. And I kind of said, man, dropshipping sure sounds like a really interesting thing to do as far as matching supply to demand in the consumer supply chain. So we jumped into dropshipping, and that became Doba as this virtual distribution model. We didn't raise any investors, any money from investors. In 2003, which was our first full year, we did about $360,000, $70,000 of revenue. By 2006, we were an $8 million company. We were the fastest growing company in Utah and number 23 on the Inc. 500. And that business kind of matured and plateaued, and for various reasons, business models, everything else. It's a long conversation. And we saw other opportunities over those, over a few years of kind of poking at stuff, and tried some stuff internally in 2009, 2010, and culminated a year ago where we took 9 people and the technology out of Doba, started a new company, a new startup, and basically are still working in the virtual supply chain, e-commerce, software as a service, enterprise software for retailers and manufacturers. So that's my current company. We have 16 employees. We committed $2.8 million into that business with the spinoff, and we just closed. A piece of this is still coming over the next 2 weeks on a $2.2 million seed round of financing. So went from bootstrapping a business to close to $10 million to raising $5 million to try something maybe bigger and harder. So that's my quick background. So I want to talk the things that I thought we could talk about. You guys can tell me, okay? So talk about what I call entrepreneurial arcs or experiences leading to opportunities. Talk about how to come up with ideas. How do you know if you have a good solution to big problems? Talk about raising money. Talk about risk reward. Talk about stress and pressures and expectations as entrepreneurship. Talk about highs and lows, work-life balance, family, team trust, or kind of an example day in my life. So I don't know how we do this. You want to vote? You want to vote? Okay. Who wants to talk about entrepreneurial arcs and experiences? All right, so like 5. Problems and solutions and ideas. Raise your hand for all of them. We can bang them out too. I don't know how long we'll go. You just want to go? All right. So I have this thought. I call it entrepreneurial arc. I don't know if that's the right thing. And the reason I call it that is because it's kind of like a story arc. I think of story arcs like you're developing characters, you're building plot, it's this arc that you travel through. I think entrepreneurship is a lot the same. So if I look at my career, I'm a farm boy, and I am running a company now that is trying to disrupt the, $50 billion enterprise software market for the supply chain. It's like, how did that happen in a span of like 13 years? And that's what I refer to as this arc. It started with this very simple idea. Most ideas that you have as entrepreneurs are simple, especially in college, because you just haven't had a lot of experiences. Your worldview, your problem view, you look at the world as a world of problems, is very limited because you just haven't seen a lot of the world and a lot of things, especially in business. So my view was very, very simplistic. These guys sell skis out of a horse trailer. I'm going to do that on the internet. And what that's led me down is a long process of learning a lot about how products are manufactured and made, how they're distributed, how they're moved around, how, in essence, these consumer products that represent supply, match up to the Bobs of the world, all of us who buy stuff and consume things. I didn't know anything about that. And today, I actually know a lot about that. Not to brag or anything, but I go speak at conferences about those things. But I didn't ever take a supply chain operations class or any of those things, right? I learned it by being on the front lines of running businesses for 12, 13, 14 years. And that's what I call this idea of an entrepreneurial arc is the businesses that you, and the problems that you will see and the solutions to those problems will drastically change with experience and with more things and more inputs. And the big kicker though is you have to start somewhere, right? It's like, you can totally cliche, but like a story, like once upon a time, right? You got to start the story somewhere before you ever start to talk about characters or any of those things. So, you know, kind of the way I think about that is, even if what you think you see as a problem and a solution is there, you got to start someplace. And most likely it'll end up being way different than you think. And I thought we were selling skis online, ski swaps, right? But it was closeout inventory. You know, it was the supply chain dynamics of a geographically constrained consumer. You know, I'm not going to drive to Colorado to buy my skis, right? Kind of mashing up and hitting up against a physical constraint of inventory, which is, if I run Canyon Sports in Salt Lake City, there's only so many pairs of skis that I can actually afford to buy and stick into my store. You know, that's a very inefficient way to match supply demand, you know, which has turned into this whole road that I'm on now. So that's what I talk about entrepreneurial arcs. If anybody has any questions about that, that's something that I think is really important. I've seen, yeah, go ahead.
What do you think, you said you didn't know anything and you learned a lot. What do you think is the best way to get in and learn something that you're interested about?
You just got to go do it. So the way maybe this is controversial. I generally believe two things about entrepreneurship. Number one, I believe that what you're born with heavily disposes. What do I? Disposes. Well, yeah, I don't know what word I'm looking for. Again, if anything like this, you just got to always remember farm boy. You know, it's like simple. So, you are born to be an entrepreneur more than you are made to be an entrepreneur. That's my opinion. And it's because it's personality characteristics and somewhat mental issues that make people be entrepreneurs. And that kind of dovetails to my second belief is it's really hard to teach entrepreneurship. You can't teach it. You just have to go do it. So the way I think about that, who here has ever fly fished before? So would you guys that have fly fished, and then of the people who have fly fished who have fished with a normal pole too, pretty much everybody, would you say fly fishing is harder or easier than normal fishing? Harder? Like twice as hard, 5 times as hard? 10 times as hard, right? It's just it's more like hunting than it is fishing. You have to know where the fish are. You got to know what they want to eat. There's way more things going on. There's a technique involved. If I'm in a lake with a spinner, I just flip it out there. If it goes 10 feet, it doesn't matter, and it doesn't work that way. So fly fishing is way more like entrepreneurship than normal fishing is. And go online and start watching YouTube videos if you've never fly fished before, and then go up the Provo River and start fishing and see how many fish you catch. It's impossible. It's not going to happen. The only way to learn how to fly fish is you go with somebody that's done it before. It's an apprenticeship kind of thing, right? So that's in my mind entrepreneurship. And I don't even know why I started talking about this. What were you talking about? What was your question? Yeah, so you got to go do it. If you want to be an entrepreneur, go start a company, even if it's a simple thing, you know. Go start a car wash, right? You're going to learn a lot about entrepreneurship. Who's your customer? I don't know. I guess I got to figure out how to get some customers. Well, that's not a lot different than me looking around saying, okay, who's my customer? Well, my customer are retailers between 5 million and 250 million. Okay, how do I get I mean, the core of it's the same. And it's really hard. I mean, there are foundational things you can learn in school, but you can't be an entrepreneur from school. Which is a whole other thing I got to tell you about Johnny. Should we talk about Johnny?
Yeah, let's talk about
So this is John Allen here in the front. So he works. He's one of my 16 employees, and John was an intern with us, right? Yeah. And then had plans after that summer to go to MBA school at University of Utah, and could even get a deal on it because his dad teaches up there. Don't hold that against him. You know, he came down here to the other school, but Johnny and I had a lot of conversations about entrepreneurship along these same kind of things, which I have had with a bunch of people. And Johnny was the first that says, you know what, I think you're right. I'm not going to go do an MBA. Can I just work for you guys? So if you're familiar with, I don't know, maybe you're not, venture capitalists, investors, and sometimes institutions, government institutions, higher ed, they have a position called entrepreneur in residence. Usually it's a successful entrepreneur to come in and give them advice on investments to make, or guide programs, whatever it is. So we came up with this idea, and we're like, well, what's the yin to that yang, right? Like at the startup, because startups are not about like big experience, experienced entrepreneurs. So we came up with this idea of entrepreneur in training. That's the counterpart. So Johnny's official title is entrepreneur in training. And I don't know, Johnny, what do you do? What do you do at Dropship? He posted up on my blog. He tell you all about it, but tell us what you do and how that has impacted your thinking on things.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a huge working in a startup company is way different. Like my perception on business has changed with time because I studied business up to UVU. I was an auditor for a big accounting firm, and I realized that I wasn't even the business experience I wanted. When I started interning, I started doing a lot of market research just on the market that we were trying to hit. Getting information for investors on our sales pipeline, on our potential, our model for how we sell stuff and how we price things. And now every day, I mean, it's a different thing. I mean, I get to be doing a financial projection for a year out. You can do all these what if scenarios, or I'm doing research, or I'm getting Jeremy a Mountain Dew down the street. I mean, it's awesome because I go to work every day excited. I know that there's going to be really big challenges. Lately we've been talking about how we can onboard customers quicker and get them moving quicker. And so, I mean, every day you get to kind of look at the big picture and say, what are the problems that we can solve, and then trying to figure out how can we make this happen. Not looking at all the obstacles, but how can we overcome those obstacles and make it happen. So it's been awesome.
You just have to do it. And if you don't have your own problem solution that you've seen, just go work at a startup. Go work at a smaller company. It's hard at school because schools are in the business of training people for the mainstream workforce. It's where their funding comes from. It's how the professors make money. Right? They get professorships from big companies to then go do research that they can publish, that then circulates back. I mean, it's the engine of it, and it's an okay engine. But if you have entrepreneurial tendencies, it's a horrible engine because you're going to go and be now an auditor. I was in the accounting program at BYU. I went and did an audit internship at Arthur Andersen in Los Angeles because that's what you did. That's your whole life was moving you down this machine, right? And if the internship had been, maybe a day longer than the 9 weeks that it was, I'd have jumped off a bridge off the 405 and just been done with it. And I came back and I said, I want to change my major. I don't want to be an accountant. I've realized it. And you know what they said? You can't change your major. You got to just be done. Get out of here. You've taken up too much precious time already. And I'm like, all right, that's easy. I'm going to just quit school then. But the machine was saying, no, you got to finish it off, man. You've got your offer from Arthur Andersen, go work in Silicon Valley. That was the plan, right? That was and I realized through that experience of that plan was horrible for me. If that's you, go get a job at a tech company. Go get a job at a startup. I mean, even if it has 100 employees, don't go work at a company with 50,000 people. If you think you want to be an entrepreneur, I'd try to find a company with less than 10 or less, 100 max, because otherwise it starts to get too siloed off and you don't know what's going on. Okay, what next? You guys have anything? I can keep going down my list if you have anything burning questions. You want to jump to that one? You want to get dirty with the money? Okay. All right. So one of the things I say in one of my other presentations, my Adventures in Entrepreneurship, is that raising money is the root of all evil for entrepreneurs. The reason I say that is because it's almost impossible. I mean, I actually think it probably is impossible. If you're a first-time entrepreneur, you will not be able to raise money for your company. That's what you should assume. So then and it's hard, because I'll tell you at the same time, entrepreneurship is about doing the impossible. It's about creating something from nothing and all these things. But on this point, you would be better off thinking that you could walk outside today and fly to Boulder, Colorado just on your own 2 arms than thinking you can go raise money, except for people who love you. That's the exception. So if you have an idea and you've never been an entrepreneur before, you have no track record, and you say, I have to have money to do this idea. There's 2 ways to do it. People who love you and your own money. The people who love you will give you money for your business. They'd also bail you out of jail. In bad cases, people who love people give people money to go buy drugs, right? I mean, that's the only way you raise money as a first-time entrepreneur. Now there are exceptions to that, right? There are always exceptions, but the statistical odds are so absolutely horrendous. You'd be better off figuring out how to take that perceived roadblock, which is, I can't move forward without money, and come at it from another angle. Come at it from, well, okay, how do I make that go away? Well, I could do this, I could do this, I could test this, I could, that, because if you focus on moving that rock, it's just so much time and energy. People like me are exceptions. I can go out and say, look, this is my 3rd company. I've been doing this for 12 years. I know what I'm talking about. You can talk to people who will vouch for me. In essence, I look good on paper. I look credible when you talk to me. So I can go out and raise, millions of dollars. And that's what, as entrepreneurs, we always look at that, right? We read TechCrunch, right? We always look up at these people they're the exceptions, right? They're not the rules. And generally the rule is, if you're going to get something going and you actually do need resources or time, whether it's time or money or cash, it has to come from stuff that's inside your control. That's my thought on it. So I would tell you, don't do it. Figure out a different way. What do you think you need money for?
Well, I want to do a charity, so.
Oh, well, that's a whole different thing.
But I thought,
Charities are different. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, sorry. Does somebody have an idea they think they need to raise money for that they haven't done yet? I want to poke. Yeah.
I'll throw it out there. It's a fan-based game website that basically takes the people who play the game and it's a little league version for them, so they can play and compete for small prizes and recognition.
What kind of like an online, like computer games?
It's called League of Legends by Riot.
Okay. And why do you need money? What would you use the money for?
We're stuck on the website where we can't.
You got to build it?
Yeah.
How else could you do that without money? Yeah. Find somebody who will put their time in. Because really, if you think building a website is just time, it's time from a person who thinks in ones and zeros, right? You don't have to, people will put time into things without money. You just have to convince them to do it. That will be hard, right? To convince somebody to, because people like that think in ones and zeros. Anybody here an engineer? No? Okay, so they have their own ideas, first of all. They're very creative people. They love to solve problems. So that's your first hurdle. The second hurdle, people like me are willing to pay them 150 grand a year, right, to code, to think in ones and zeros, right? So you have a long road. But it's possible, and I think that's 1,000 times more likely that you can find that guy than you can convince somebody to write you a $100,000 check so that then you can go and hire that guy when you don't have any track record. As an entrepreneur, you have no track record. The idea isn't proven, right? And it's chicken and egg. It's like, yeah, but I can't prove the idea unless I have the website to show you that it's going to work. It's ways to prove it. I think back to gear trade. I could have, this is just how I've always deconstructed problems. This is like the smallest known piece that I can actually do. So I didn't go and build a website. I didn't go, find source of skis. All I did was go into Microsoft Word, build a word logo called Ski Trade, print off some flyers, and paper campus. And then I went to the Scoutorama for a day and I surveyed people, just where do you buy your products? How do you get gear? I mean, I deconstructed it down. And I wasn't building a business, but I was learning and I was getting information. And at some point, then when I went to my family and a few other people and said, please invest in me because you love me, at least I had some, I could say, and I think it's going to work because of this and this and this. This is who I talk to. This is my advisor who's an industry insider. I mean, that's how you deconstruct it down. That's my thoughts on raising money. Did somebody have a question over here I saw?
I was just gonna say, another way like a lot of businesses do, I know the guy I work for, he builds websites and stuff, and he barters, so like he'll do trade work or for an item he may need or for time that he may need, he'll just say, well,
Yeah.
I'll do this website for free if you do this for me.
Yeah. Get on the interweb, and look up some engineers and just show up at their house. Be like, hey, here's the thing, man. I will take out your trash. I will do your yard work. I'll deliver your groceries twice a week. Will you spend 20 hours and build me a prototype? And I don't want you to I'll never talk to you ever again. Just build me a prototype, I'll take you skiing, whatever. I mean, there's lots of ways to try to think about that. The other last thought I have on money is, it's a simple formula. You have inputs, you have outputs, right? It's like business entrepreneurship. You basically have people, time, and money. And you put that in, and you are hoping that there is value that comes out the other side. Depending on the dynamics of what you're trying to do, determines the people, time, and money that you actually have to do to get it done. And it has to kind of then match up with the value component. So I look at, actually funny, because Sean, people think I hate investors, right? Generally, I've had that come up a lot. Because we didn't do investors with Doba, and so people then take it to be like, well, you must hate investors. We just didn't do it. We hacked it and then it hit and it just exploded, right? But I've had people come up to me, like actually investors like that. Jeremy, I know you hate investors, but will you please talk to us about this new thing you're going to go work on? But it's like, no, I don't hate investors at all. I just want to match up the right formula. And using other people's money, you just have to know what you're going to get out of it. I mean, we're putting lots of money into this company, millions of dollars. Because what we're trying to build is really hard and complicated. It can't be done, cheaply. It's not like a little mini website. And B, we believe that the opportunity generates that kind of, potential return. The best example I have there is a guy, quarterback when I was in Gear Trade, came to me and said, I need your help to go talk to the Utah Angels because I want to raise it's $4.2 million for a chain of country western themed diners. It's like, you know what? Seems like that's probably the formula being out of whack. That's a lot of money for restaurants, So that's the other thing to think about. And there's nothing wrong. Success is what you make it. You don't have to go build a massive company. There's nothing wrong with being an entrepreneur with a good business with 3 employees. I mean, and I shouldn't even focus. That employees a whole other different thing. That's created some amount of value that you can capture. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to try to fit the world you see, especially like Silicon Valley and things that you see that we all hear so much of. The Facebooks and the Zuckerbergs and all that, right? You talk about exceptions to the rule. I am an exception to the rule. And that's not me being, again, I just am. Picture then me, compared to like a guy like Mark Zuckerberg. It's like, I don't know what that is even called, because it's like literally one in like, there's a better chance that asteroid over Russia would have wiped out the Earth, than you go become the next Mark Zuckerberg. So you just change that idea and figure out something that you can actually go do. So that's my thoughts on money. It's not wrong to get money from people who love you. Just know that when you lose their money, it really sucks. And I speak from experience. The other way with money is yourself. I don't know what the world's like today, but when I did Gear Trade, right before we were able to sell the assets and basically just pay off the server leases and stuff we had, if Gear Trade, we had talked that summer of 2002, there were only 3 of us left. And we basically had said, we had grown to 13 employees, we couldn't raise any more money. We raised $220,000. So we fired everybody except for 2 of us that were working for free. And we made it another year. And if we hadn't made a year, we wouldn't have got, it would have been way worse. But we lost all the investors' money. We found somebody to kind of buy the technology we had built and pay enough money to pay off the leases. But if we had talked, we said, by the fall, if this isn't going, we're going to walk away and just go dig ourselves out of the hole. I added it up at that point, and it was about $160,000 of debt that I had guaranteed as the founder, credit cards or computer leases and things. You know, so, you know, when you think about asking other people to give you their money, especially family who love you because their signals are off a little bit, they don't make a good decision. You better make sure you're in it up to your eyeballs of your own money. You know, credit cards, donating plasma, you know, living on ramen noodles, that kind of stuff. Like it really, when I come across entrepreneurs that are early entrepreneurs, you know, and they're driving like an Audi, you know, and so, I mean, it really starts to bug me because they have made lifestyle decisions that make their ability to be a scrappy, nimble entrepreneur almost impossible, and then they're expecting other people to put in time or money or energy to kind of support that. So not to say if you guys own an Audi, that's horrible, right? But just saying generally, just make sure that you are committed about 10x that anybody else is that you're asking to put in time or money. Yeah?
I wonder once you actually had a successful company, I would guess you probably went back to family and paid family back, but did you feel like that was a drain on you all the time? Like this constant like nagging of, hey, I still owe, you know, my brother-in-law this money or whatever? Or how did you kind of just get over that?
Yeah.
How did you resolve that to move forward?
So today's about being honest, right? It never bothered me ever. And that's one of the things I think generally entrepreneurs have something in our brain is a little bit off as far as our ability to gauge risk and reward, and as far as our ability to ask for things that are probably not appropriate to ask for, you know, including how hard you'll ask someone to work. You know, and it's crazy because at least for me, I can kind of sense that I'm off that way. You know, I kind of have this sense of like, that's not right. Why are you that way? Like, I never lost a minute of sleep that I lost, you know, between me and the other kind of guys that were getting this thing started. It was $170,000, $80,000. Like, it just never bothered me. I don't know. I'm being honest with you guys, right? But I think that dimension, if those kinds of things do bother you, like at very much of a level, entrepreneurship will chew you up and spit you out because that happens every day. Like, we've raised $2.2 million of other people's money for dropship commerce. A lot of that money came to me with them looking at me in the eyes and say, I'm giving you this investment because of you. I don't ever think about it. And they're friends, some of them, you know. But I mean, I feel pressure there, but if I wasn't a little bit off in my head, like that would, I mean, it would destroy me. It almost destroys me and I'm off in the head, right? So, I mean, that's what I talk about entrepreneurship. It's not all these gory things, you know. I mean, Johnny knows that. I mean, one of the things with entrepreneur training, I bring Johnny into everything, board meetings, executive meetings, you know, just because the whole reason that he's working for us is so he can go be an entrepreneur. I mean, that's why we queued it up. I mean, it's a year from now or 10 years from now. And so we try to go out of our way to give him experiences at the highest level of the business, you know. And so he knows the pressures we face, right? And he sees that. But again, now that I'm thinking of this, I just never thought about it. I mean, my mom and dad are farmers. They gave us $9,000 or $10,000, you know. You know, and like you say, I've made things, you know, right and stuff, but I don't know, I was weird. I just never thought of it that way. I recruit, you know. I have 2 of my most recent hires move their families to Utah. One from Minnesota, one from Jackson, Wyoming. I mean, this is a big deal. Both of them took pay cuts, you know. If I'm honest, like, I mean, I don't think our chance of success is 50-50 in this business. It's just too hard. I mean, most businesses fail. Like, the stats are against us, right? And the thing we're trying to do is hard. We're probably too early still. All these things, you juggle it down. It's like, I don't know what our real chance is, but And I tell my investors the same thing. It's like, we'll fight as hard as we know how to make this a success, but statistically, and if you want me to be honest, I'm gonna tell you it's probably gonna fail. So that's in my head, right? But then at the same time, I can go to Eric and Todd and I say, yeah, come and work for a startup, move your family to Utah, you know? Like something's messed up in my head, don't you think, a little bit? That I would allow people to take those kinds of risks and life changes at the same time that I don't think we might have maybe 50-50 chance of making this thing work. I mean, that's why I kind of think entrepreneurship is more what you're born with, because some of those things, you could argue that it might be almost defective, you know, like almost personality kind of defects that actually inside of entrepreneurship are awesome. Inside of like, you know, marriages and relationships and roommates and, you know, those, they can cause other problems, right? But that's one of those things that it's hard to put a finger on, but I just have this general sense that most entrepreneurs are a little bit off in how they think about some of those things. Because otherwise you would never do what you do, you know? I mean, so many stories, you know, even gear trade, you know, we put everybody in a room, you know, 12 people, sorry, today's your last day and there's no more money. You hear those kind of stories from, you know, I mean, it's those things, but then it just bounces off you. You're just plugging away the next day like nothing happened. And isn't that, I mean, it does impact you a lot, right? I mean, let's go to a new question. I want to come back to the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. What else you guys want to talk about? So don't give me money, because I will lose it.
About work-life balance. I mean, this was a great question about family.
Yeah.
Andy went through all of this with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's kind of two questions, I think. Is work-life balance and then there's family.
Okay.
So let's do work-life balance first. So I think that's the wrong analogy. I'm going to draw on the whiteboard since I had somebody bring me a marker. If you think about balance, right? What's the word balance conjure in your head? A scale, right? The word balance means balance, right? It's like the wrong word. It means everything is okay. It's, you know, it's balanced. If you tip the scale, it's like, well, that's not balanced, that's out of balance. But I think a better analogy for work life is, I call it the pendulum. This is one of my blog posts a couple weeks ago. It's like you got this pendulum hanging from this point. This is like your life. I don't know. I don't even remember my own analogy now, but this pendulum can swing, you know, it's a fixed point like this, so it can swing 360 degrees and there's a plane, right? It can't go higher than this plane up here, right? This circular plane. And I don't think there is balance. It's a faulty metaphor because it makes you think like you can just make it all work. It doesn't work that way. My life is way, 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 way out of balance right now. My pendulum is like up here for startup, you know? And my family suffers. I worked every day through the holidays. I was in the office every single day except Christmas and the day after Christmas. You know, I was supposed to be in Moab this afternoon with my wife and kids, and I canceled that because I still have some outstanding stuff for this fundraising, you know. My life is way out of balance, right? It's not in balance. It's just a pendulum. So my job, you know, that my pendulum's over here, you know, is what moved the pendulum that way? There's these external influences. This nasty thing called a startup is moving my pendulum. Well, I have my own external influences. I can influence my own life, so I can push it back. And at some point, I'll push it over here, and I'll try to balance it out, you know, on I guess, you know, not this kind of balance, but just swinging it around. You know, sometimes a boulder tries to kill you on Mount Nebo. That's a pendulum that swishes, you know, pushes you. But so this is how I think about it: is your life is always in flux. There's all these external influences. Entrepreneurship will be a huge one. You just have to be really diligent to start pushing back on what's pushing on you to get you out of in these other things. And that leads to kind of family, because this is the world that you live as an entrepreneur. And I think if you are married or in a relationship, and you're already in that marriage relationship, then the ship sailed, and you just need to know you either married the right person, as you know, to support entrepreneurship, or the wrong. And if you go be an entrepreneur and you've married the wrong person, you won't be married for long, because it just doesn't work. It's so hard to live inside this world where some other thing can consume as much time as it's like a black hole. I could work every day for the rest of my life as much as I could, and barely get enough sleep. Even just on dropship commerce, I could do that for 10 years. And the only thing that I know for certain is that every day that I would start at, say, 5 in the morning, my to-do list would be longer than it was the day before. It's not just never-ending to-do list, it's an always increasing to-do list. And so in that kind of an environment, it becomes like a baby, it becomes like a kid, it becomes like a family member, and it competes drastically for your time and attention for other places. And so you have to have somebody who can understand that and who can say, oh, well, it is what it is. I might not be happy about it all the time, but then can get their head around it. And my wife is spectacular that way. She was a first-time entrepreneur's spouse, same time I was a first-time entrepreneur, and now, she knows the drill. And when last night I said, hey, you know what? We're not going to go to Moab. We'll just do it in a month. It was like, okay. Because I've probably done that 60 times, in our marriage. And again, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. That's probably a bad thing. It's probably not good for my wife. It's probably not good for my 2 kids, right? It's probably not good that I don't try to balance it out and, that I allow something to swing me here where, whether it's travel or work or whatever, I am not there as much for my kids. They grow up really fast, but then, I don't know, that's partially it's who I am, it's what I was born, how I was born, and it's what I've chosen to do for my career. And so it is what it is, but it's not, it's not the best. It's not always, good stuff. So how much time we got left? What else?
What do you love about entrepreneurship? What makes you want to make that sacrifice?
I don't know how to be any other way. That's my best answer for that. I could never not do this kind of stuff, creating something from nothing, and I couldn't do it, I'll never not do this, no matter what else I have going on in my life or what my bank account balance is or anything else. I would make it no time at all, without something like this. The other piece of what I have is I love the outdoors. That's where I go to reflect and to decompress, and I get out and I go do things and get off the grid and stuff like that. But I don't know how else I would be. Is the best answer, I guess, for that. I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but I told Shauna today, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to prepare anything. I'm just going to talk about some stuff. I think the outcome is going to be there's going to be some number of people in the room who are going to say, that does not sound cool. I'm not going to be an entrepreneur. And there's going to be other people who say, I kind of think I might be crazy just like Jeremy. And so if it's giving you a glimpse, we have 5 more minutes. So the last thing I want to cover is just about pressure and stress and highs and lows. So it is the highs you feel are more than you could ever imagine, and the lows are worse than anything you can imagine. You've probably heard that before. It's kind of cliche, but I'll tell you, last night, it's just been I knew I was canceling this trip to Moab. There's a lot of pressure over the next couple months with where we are with the business. It feels like there's some things that just aren't clicking like they should. I've been raising money, which is just the worst possible thing you could ever try to do. It sucks your life away completely because you always have to be so, it's like you can't be quite as brutally honest as I like to be, because no one would really actually ever give you a check. So I've got that going on anyway. So, I've just been crazy pressure. And last night, my kids have karate. I'm like, hey, let's go eat someplace. I don't care, pick a place. They picked Chick-fil-A over American Fork, so I went over there. And I told my wife, I said, I hate my job. I actually, today, in this moment, I absolutely hate what I'm doing. I have no positivity. I'm done. I'm gonna quit. I'm done. And that was how my day went yesterday. I've had more of those days in the last few months than I probably have had in my entrepreneur career. And you just feel this pressure and this weight, and you're just like, maybe I should not be this way. Maybe I should just go do whatever else. Go be a fly fishing guide. Catching fish sure sounds nice at times like that. And then, I wake up this morning and I go to work and I'm back at it, and it's a way better day. But it's those highs and lows, and it's extreme. There are times where hate is too nice of a word for it. And then there are other times where love is not strong enough of a word for it. And that's this roller coaster you have. And even though I talk about, I somehow in my head I'm miswired and I don't care about families and or my family or my parents' money, or I do care about those things, right? And it's hard, it's hard to think, and have the thought, well, man, there's a chance this doesn't go, and if it doesn't go, look at all the money. Look at the people who moved their families. Look at Johnny, who I convinced to not go do an MBA. It's probably the worst decision of his life, right? That pressure is really, really real. And it takes, I think, to some degree, a very unique person to be able to deal with it. And you have to have family and friends and a team that can deal with the swinging around, and that can deal with those pressures too, especially in the early days. Once you start clicking, that starts to really disperse. But I think if you were to go talk to some of the other guys at Dropship, on my team, Blaine and Todd and Eric and Clark and those guys and Ben, I think they would tell you the same thing. I think they would say, there's some days that this sucks, and he's gonna say other days that it doesn't. And that's the fight that we're fighting, is how do we make it, how do we get past that and ultimately create something from nothing, which, that's the coolest part about it, is you can look and say, whether it's a company, Doba's a company with 55 employees. It has 20,000 customers. It does things. And 10 years ago, it did not exist. Or a product that you do. Those are really cool things. It's like invention at a company scale. And that's what I said growing up. I wanted to be an inventor. I just decided to be too lazy with science, and so I can't invent scientific things. I have to come at it from a different level. But is any other last questions? Yeah.
Yeah, how do we read the blog?
Just jeremyhanks.com. Keep it simple. Yeah, if you want to see a pressure thing, go back a few weeks and look at the IM I pasted that I had with my wife while I was in New York, because I was having another bad day. And I was IMing with her, and she was kind of talking me down and saying it's going to be okay. And I was like, I'm going to paste that and put it on my blog. And so I'm trying to be very open about that it's not all rosy. Last thing really quick before you go. So this thing here on the wall, I call it the Declaration of Entrepreneurship. Okay? So Johnny saw me present a couple times at the U. If you want to be an entrepreneur, come and pick out, I got every color of Sharpie marker they make. Sign your name, put down your name and your email address, okay? And at some point in the future, I'm going to email you and find out if you were an entrepreneur. It might be 10 years from now, so use an email that hopefully you have for a while, assuming that email's still here when the machines take over. But come sign up, put your name, go on record, and I will be the person who tries to make sure you do it. Thanks for letting me come.